When I first saw it, I thought that this was a US-made, very advanced next-generation fighter.
The object gliding with purpose until it struck high-voltage power lines and dropped to the ground.
Ever feel like tech's moving faster than we can keep up? Well, Grok 4 just proved that again. This time, with a model that's literally messing with the laws of physics.
The sphere weighed 2 kilos at the beginning, and through the days, the sphere went up to 6 kilos.
It's called the Buga Sphere Model, and it's not just making noise. It's creating a legit energy spike that even MIT physicists are talking about.
It's certainly real. It's using an energy field, a type of anti-gravity effect.
Now, before we start throwing around terms like energy spike and quantum layers, let's get into how this model actually works and why even MIT is paying attention. The Buga Sphere lands. In March 2025, something unusual appeared over the small city of Buga in Colombia. Dozens of people looked up to see a shining metallic orb moving across the sky in sharp, sudden turns. It wasn't gliding like a drone or falling like a meteor. Witnesses described movements that seemed impossible: zigzags, instant stops, and sudden bursts of speed. Eventually, the object descended and came to rest in a field just outside the city. When locals approached, they found what looked like a polished metal sphere about the size of a bowling ball. It was perfectly smooth, with no seams, bolts, or openings of any kind. What stood out even more was its weight. At first, the sphere was light, barely 4 pounds. But over the following weeks, scientists tracking it recorded a steady increase until it was over 20 pounds, all without any change in size or visible structure. The sphere was taken for study, and that's where the story became even stranger. Teams at MIT ran tests that revealed something science couldn't explain. Instruments detected a continuous pull of energy, as if the sphere was absorbing about 100 watts of heat from its environment. To put that in everyday terms, it's like having a small light bulb, but instead of glowing, it runs in reverse, pulling energy in. This effect didn't stop after minutes or hours. It kept going. No chemical reaction, battery, or known material could account for it. Experiments also revealed baffling side effects. Water placed on the sphere evaporated instantly, but thermal cameras showed its surface wasn't hot. Instead, the energy appeared to vanish into the metal and then somewhere else entirely. Plants in the landing zone died and never grew back, and animals avoided the area. Electronic devices brought too close began glitching, with some even resetting completely. Faced with these mysteries, researchers turned to Grok 4, an advanced artificial intelligence built to model extreme physics. After processing all the data, Grok 4 suggested that the sphere might contain a structure designed to manipulate mass itself. In other words, it could reduce or increase its own weight depending on conditions. This might explain how it moved so easily through the sky before landing. Even more surprising, Grok 4 predicted the 100-watt energy draw before MIT confirmed it, giving credibility to its model. Internal scans added yet another layer. X-rays revealed multiple concentric shells and smaller spheres arranged inside the main body, along with what looked like a dense central core. Some of these inner components even shifted slightly during experiments, suggesting the sphere was not just passive metal, but an active device. What the purpose of this object might be is still unknown. Some believe it could be a probe, designed either for exploration or observation. Others point to its strange responses to sound and vibration, suggesting it might communicate or activate under the right conditions. The MIT energy spike. When the sphere reached the labs at MIT, Dr. Chen and her team approached it with caution. At first glance, it looked like a solid, ordinary object, but the instruments told a very different story. Over weeks of round-the-clock monitoring, the team kept seeing the same result. The sphere was pulling in energy from its surroundings at a steady rate of about 100 watts. Now, that may not sound like much. It's the same amount of energy used by a simple household light bulb. But here's the catch. Nothing in our universe should be able to do that without giving something back. It's one of the most basic rules of physics. Energy cannot appear or disappear without a clear exchange. Yet the sphere seemed to ignore that law completely. The team tried experiment after experiment to find a conventional explanation. They checked for hidden batteries, looked for chemical reactions, and tested for trapped gases or unusual materials. Nothing fit. The absorption never slowed down. It didn't fluctuate with room temperature or pressure. It just continued, as if the sphere was running on rules outside of known science. Then came the water test. When droplets were placed on the surface, they vanished instantly, flashing into steam. The strange part was that thermal cameras showed the surface wasn't hot. To the touch, it even felt cool. The heat wasn't radiating outward. It was being pulled inward, disappearing somewhere that instruments couldn't track. These weren't just isolated oddities. They were recorded under strict laboratory conditions with calibrated tools and independent verification. That's what made this so extraordinary. It wasn't speculation. It was measured, repeatable data. For the first time, a respected scientific institution confirmed that the sphere produces an energy effect that modern physics cannot account for. The implications were unsettling. If an object can take in energy endlessly without showing signs of storage or release, then our understanding of conservation, one of the pillars of science, is incomplete. It's as if someone found a refrigerator that never needed power, a system that could cool endlessly just by existing. Beyond the lab, the findings raised questions that stretched far past physics textbooks. Could this effect be scaled up? Could it one day power machines or even entire cities without fuel? Or was it something more dangerous, a system that destabilizes environments, like the barren landing site in Colombia? Dr. Chen's report ended with a clear warning. If confirmed by future studies, the Buga Sphere might force humanity to rethink motion, energy, and space itself. Grok 4's bold quantum model. The moment the MIT results hit, the entire scientific world was buzzing, with confusion, curiosity, and a ton of unanswered questions. Instruments had confirmed the energy spike was real, but no conventional theory could explain it. That's when researchers decided to try something new. Instead of forcing old physics to fit the data, they turned to Grok 4, an advanced artificial intelligence built to model complex physical systems. The team fed every measurement into Grok 4. The changing weight, the thermal data, the electromagnetic readings, even the X-ray scans of the sphere's internal structure. Within hours, the AI produced a model that stunned its human counterparts. It suggested that the sphere might be built around a hidden lattice capable of generating something called a negative mass effect. To understand how radical this is, imagine pushing an object and watching it move toward you instead of away. Negative mass flips the normal rules of motion. According to Grok 4's calculations, the Buga Sphere wasn't just shifting weight at random, it was actively altering its own inertia. This could explain why eyewitnesses saw it dart across the sky in sharp, zigzag patterns that no aircraft could perform. With most of its mass effectively canceled, very little force would be needed to move it at incredible speeds. But Grok 4 didn't stop there. The AI also predicted that the sphere should continuously absorb about 100 watts of heat from its environment. That exact figure was later confirmed in MIT's lab. The accuracy of this prediction gave weight to the entire model. For the first time, researchers had a framework that tied the energy anomaly, the weight changes, and the flight behavior into a single explanation. The internal scans revealed something even more intriguing. Inside the sphere were clusters of smaller microspheres arranged in precise patterns. Grok 4 suggested these weren't random. Instead, they could form the basis of a neuromorphic system, essentially a brain built from quantum components. According to the AI, such a system could perform up to 70 trillion operations per second. That's enough processing power to monitor its environment and regulate the sphere's unusual physical effects in real time. If true, this means the object is not simply absorbing energy like a sponge. It may be intelligently managing that energy, redistributing it in ways we don't yet understand. The sphere might not be just a machine, but a device with an advanced control system built directly into its structure. For the scientists, this raised a troubling question. Who or what designed it? The materials themselves could be explained as earthly metals, but the architecture pointed to knowledge far beyond current human capabilities. What began as a strange artifact from a Colombian field was starting to look like a sophisticated system, possibly even a probe with its own built-in intelligence. And if that's the case, the next question is even more important. How does such an object affect the world around it? Environmental fallout. The arrival of the sphere didn't just raise questions inside laboratories. Its presence left visible, measurable marks on the land and on the people who came too close. In Buga, those who first handled the object reported unusual symptoms within hours. Headaches, dizziness, and fatigue persisted for days, even though medical checks found no obvious cause. One local described it as feeling drained of strength, as if the body itself had been pulled out of balance. But the strongest evidence of the sphere's impact wasn't on people. It was on the ground itself. Months after the landing, the site where it came to rest remained lifeless. The soil looked normal to the eye, yet not a single blade of grass managed to grow back. Agricultural specialists tested the dirt and found no radiation or chemical residue that could explain the die-off. What they did record was an unusual ionized field, slowly fading but strong enough at first to interfere with nearby instruments. Animals seemed to sense it as well. In the days after the sphere appeared, residents noted that birds avoided the area entirely. Not one perched on nearby trees, and flocks changed direction mid-flight to steer clear. To many observers, this was one of the most unsettling details. Wildlife often detects changes long before humans do, and here it was as though the natural world itself wanted nothing to do with the object. Technology behaved just as strangely. Researchers bringing devices near the sphere reported sudden malfunctions. GPS signals drifted hundreds of meters off course. Compasses spun with no clear north. Even digital watches and smartphones reset themselves when carried within a short distance. One technician said his smartwatch shut down and rebooted to factory settings, wiping out all his preferences but keeping the memory intact. A behavior engineers couldn't replicate under controlled conditions. Geomagnetic sensors later confirmed that the sphere was generating measurable fluctuations within about 100 meters of its resting place. The field wasn't uniform. It pulsed, sometimes strong, sometimes faint, as if the object were breathing. For scientists, this pattern suggested the sphere wasn't just passively sitting in the field, but was actively interacting with its environment. The consequences were real for those living nearby. Farmers reported declining crop yields on the edges of their land, while some households complained of electronic interference in appliances. These accounts were hard to verify, but when combined with the confirmed barren zone and the electromagnetic readings, the picture was difficult to ignore. The sphere had changed the landscape in ways both subtle and dramatic. What troubled researchers most was the uncertainty. Was this damage an accidental side effect, or was it intentional? If the object could influence soil, wildlife, and electronics without any clear trigger, what else might it be capable of? And this brings us to an even deeper puzzle, because as the story unfolded, evidence suggested the Buga Sphere wasn't the first of its kind. To understand its place in a bigger picture, we need to look back at historical records, earlier encounters, and the striking parallels they reveal. Bet's sphere to Jesuit maps. The sphere that landed in Buga is not an isolated case. In fact, reports of similar objects stretch back decades, and possibly even centuries. One of the most famous cases took place in 1974 in Jacksonville, Florida. The Betts family discovered a smooth metallic orb while inspecting fire damage on their property.
Knowledge of how the sphere itself happened to be in the place where I found it. As I've stated previously, when I found it, it was on top of the ground. It was not embedded.
At first, they assumed it was nothing more than scrap metal. But soon, the family began noticing strange behavior. When placed on the floor, the sphere rolled on its own, even changing direction against gravity when pushed. It responded to musical instruments, vibrating and giving off a faint ringing sound when a guitar was played nearby. The family became so unsettled that they brought it to the attention of the U.S. Navy. Military testing concluded it was made of steel, but the explanations did not match the unusual behavior witnessed in the Betts home. To this day, many believe the Betts sphere was quietly taken away for further study. Fast forward nearly 50 years, and official reports from military pilots and intelligence agencies began describing something eerily familiar. In multiple UAP encounters documented by the Pentagon, pilots reported seeing small, metallic spheres.
Fleet of them, look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
These objects performed sudden accelerations, sharp turns, and in some cases, appeared and disappeared from radar as if blinking in and out of existence. Unlike distant lights or ambiguous shapes, these were solid spherical objects, consistent with both the Betts case and now the Buga discovery. The echoes of this mystery reach even further back. Researchers examining archives uncovered a Jesuit world map from the 1600s with a startling detail. It marked what were described as the 9 spheres of arrival, a set of locations across the globe. One of those marked points sits directly over Buga, Colombia, the exact site of the 2025 landing. The question is, how could cartographers 4 centuries ago have identified this location as significant? No records explain the origin of the map, nor what the spheres of arrival were meant to represent. Yet the overlap with modern events is impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Some historians suggest these markings might point to a pattern, a global network of sites chosen for reasons we still don't understand. Others argue the references may be symbolic rather than literal. But when compared with modern sightings and laboratory-confirmed anomalies, the possibility that multiple spheres exist becomes harder to ignore. Taken together, the Betts case, the UAP reports, and the centuries-old map, the evidence suggests the Buga sphere may be just one piece of a much larger puzzle. It may not be an artifact standing alone, but part of a series connected across time and geography. And if that is true, the implications are extraordinary. We may not be looking at random accidents, but at deliberate placements, objects positioned in ways that suggest purpose, which raises the next critical question. What exactly are these spheres made of, and how can they behave in ways no known material should? Programmable matter or alien tech? As strange as the energy readings and mass shifts were, later tests revealed something even more baffling about the Buga sphere. Its material does not behave like ordinary metal. Under controlled experiments, scientists noticed that its mass actually changed with temperature. When cooled, the sphere grew slightly heavier. That discovery alone broke with everything we know about materials. Metals expand and contract predictably when heated or cooled, but their weight doesn't suddenly increase. Yet the sphere did exactly that. The results led researchers to consider an unsettling possibility that the outer shell is not a static alloy at all, but something closer to programmable matter. In other words, material designed to adapt and respond to its environment, reconfiguring itself in real time. Some even compared it to living tissue, not because it is biological in the way we know life, but because it seems to behave with purpose. The clues point in the same direction. Internal scans showed layers of microspheres inside, shifting ever so slightly after specific acoustic tests. The etched markings on its surface, which resemble runes or glyphs, also appear to interact with sound. When precise frequencies were played, instruments picked up subtle vibrations from the object, along with faint pulses of light from within. To some scientists, this suggests the engravings are not decorative symbols, but instructions, resonant codes designed to trigger responses from the sphere. If that's the case, then the Buga Sphere isn't simply a solid artifact. It's interactive. Its construction implies design choices we don't yet understand, like a system waiting to be activated under the right conditions. And it raises the question, was the object meant to respond to human interaction or to something else entirely? Another puzzle lies at the core. Imaging revealed what looks like a dense, chip-like structure at the very center, surrounded by smaller units arranged in a geometric pattern. Some theorists believe this nucleus could be the key to the sphere's behavior, acting as both processor and controller. If the surrounding metal is programmable, the core may be issuing instructions, telling the outer layers how to behave under different environmental conditions. Taken together, the evidence begins to blur the line between technology and biology. We may be looking at an engineered hybrid, a device with mechanical precision, but also the ability to adapt and change, almost like a living system. Some researchers have gone so far as to suggest it wasn't built in a conventional sense. Instead, it may have been grown, its form emerging through processes unfamiliar to human industry. For those studying the sphere, this realization is both exciting and unsettling. It suggests intelligence behind the design, but not necessarily one we recognize. Whether the object is a probe, a vault, or something entirely different, its material alone forces us to rethink the categories of machine and organism. And that leads to an even deeper mystery, because inside this object lies a core that may not only regulate its strange properties, but also store information. Revolution or revelation? The discovery of the Buga Sphere leaves us standing at a crossroads. For scientists, it is not just another unexplained artifact. It is a direct challenge to the foundation of physics, and possibly the beginning of something far larger than we can currently grasp. If its ability to draw in energy truly has no limit, the implications are staggering. Imagine a world where power plants are no longer tied to coal, oil, or even solar panels. Instead, devices could pull energy directly from their surroundings, running indefinitely without fuel. A single breakthrough like this would not just improve existing systems, it would rewrite the global economy, energy policy, and even the balance of power between nations. The propulsion side of the story is just as revolutionary. If the sphere can manipulate its mass, as Grok 4’s model suggests, it points to a future where movement through space no longer requires massive amounts of fuel. With inertia reduced, ships could accelerate and maneuver with almost no energy cost. Deep space travel, once thought impossible for human lifetimes, could become practical. The same effect could also explain why eyewitnesses saw the Buga Sphere performing sudden, impossible aerial maneuvers. In this sense, the object may already embody a technology humans have only dreamed about. But there is a darker side. The barren ground left behind in Colombia is a reminder that this is not just a neutral tool. Something about the sphere drains or alters its environment. The soil where it landed still refuses to grow new life. People who handled it experienced unexplained illness. Electronic devices nearby glitched, reset, or failed altogether. If scaled up, what would these side effects look like? Could entire ecosystems be destabilized by the same forces that power the sphere? Could technology so powerful also be uncontrollable? The unanswered questions highlight just how little we truly know. Is this object an alien probe sent to test our planet? Is it a relic from an ancient civilization with knowledge lost to time? Or is it a human creation, developed in secret and accidentally exposed before its time? Each possibility carries consequences that extend beyond science, into politics, security, and even philosophy. Dr. Chen of MIT summarized the situation in stark terms. Either we have an alien device in our hands, or we're about to revolutionize physics, or both. For researchers, it's a rare moment of clarity. This isn't speculation or wishful thinking. The data is real, the effects are measurable, and the consequences will ripple outward for decades, maybe centuries. The Buga Sphere forces us to ask a question humanity has rarely faced so directly. Are we ready to interact with technology we don't fully understand? If this object truly represents a new order of physics, it could either become the foundation of a brighter future or the opening chapter of a story we cannot control. One thing is certain: the sphere is no longer silent. It has begun to respond. And what happens next may decide whether this is a revolution of science or a revelation about our place in the universe. Thank you for watching. If you found this wild journey into Grok 4's quantum world as mind-blowing as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your crew. We've got more dope content coming your way, so stay tuned, stay curious, and we'll catch you in the next one.